Nick, you did this survey interviewing nearly 40 executives, and the bulk of them are worried about the direction of Canada's economy. How has that evolved over the past year?
Well, in this study for the American Chamber of Commerce in Canada, what's interesting is that when we ask CEOs of the top American enterprises in Canada, that the direction in terms of confidence in investing in Canada is actually on quite a steep decline right now compared to over the last 2 years. And I think a lot of this has to do with what I'll say uncertainty, the uncertainty in the Canadian environment, uncertainty in the global environment. The survey was just completed during the course of the election, and it's interesting to see that basically they think things are okay now, but the forward look is not positive when they think, at least, of the investment climate.
What's the uncertainty issue in Canada? I think we know the uncertainty that we've seen south of the border with all the trade uncertainty. What's the specific uncertainty concern as it pertains to Canada?
I think for a lot of these U.S. CEOs that are leading enterprises in Canada, they see Canada in the global context. And I think what they see is uncertainty related to Canada's relationship with China, uncertainty related to Canada's relationship with the United States, and now uncertainty related to a new government that will be a minority government. And I think when you roll up all of those things, what it creates is a certain level of anxiety and hesitation when it comes to investing in Canada right now. It speaks to the importance for this new Liberal government. It speaks to the importance of focusing on prosperity, the economy, creating jobs, advancing a narrative of where jobs are going to come from, because that was sadly lacking in the last federal election. And I think not only do Canadians want to hear about that, but it seems at least that there are some business leaders, especially those leading American enterprises in Canada, that would like to see a focus on this too.
It's amazing because it seems at odds with what the economic data was going into the federal election, which was pretty positive, resilient in the face of a global slowdown, unemployment levels coming down, record pace of job creation. And it seems like those items are viewed as yesterday's story, and looking ahead, what is it? The sentiment is that pace can't continue?
Yeah, well, actually, what you put your finger on is that this is sentiment. So this is the psychology, not just of consumers, but of executives. And this is where, I would call it joyless prosperity. You look at the numbers, and they look good. They look solid. You look at the data, and it suggests that things are good. And, even for the enterprises that we surveyed, when we asked them about sales, when we asked them about employment, that those numbers are relatively robust. But when you get into the forward look, that's when you get into a higher level of uncertainty. Actually, of all the CEOs that were surveyed, none, as in zero, thought that the Canadian economy would get stronger in the next 6 months. So we're talking about a certain level of perceptions of risk that executives see, at least when it comes to Canada, and where they think we might be in the next 6 months.
And we are talking about the Canadian economy, which is interesting because so much of the conversation has been about the unevenness since the election of those data points that I just referenced, that while it might feel a little bit better in places like Ontario, Quebec, and BC, and areas like Alberta, there is an acute sense of weakness. But it sounds like the data that you're receiving is almost a national overarching sentiment, irregardless of where you are located.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In the AmCham study that we've done, what's clear is that you have to think of these CEOs as having a global perspective. And I think what the key message is they probably do not believe that Canada is immune from any potential global shock. So they look at the broader ecosystem, and then kind of that drives a lot of the anxiety, even though many of the fundamentals in Canada seem pretty good.